Then take this cup from me. Not my will, however yours be done.
Are you the king of the Jews?
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me.
Nilikupeleka kwa pedicure.
Aje sasa?
Nilikupeleka kwa massage.
Wewe.
Namuuliza maswali.
Uliza maswali ya maana mzee.
What are you talking?
Maswali umemaliza.
Ndio wacha ujinga.
Uliza maswali ambayo iko na adabu.
Niko na adabu.
Utanyamaza.
Asira niko nayo kama mwanaume. Kama mwanaume.
Wakapigana. Hapo nilijua nimeolewa na mwanaume. Hii. Asante.
Sina ingine. Mawewe umesema. Mtu akushi huyu.
Kudimitwe nikadia nikame fall pungulu ako magode mimi kwa mabungulu.
Dear girl child, mwanaume akikuja kwako atamepata jiko, mwambie wewe ni gas na utampatia pressure.
Ananipenda leo kuliko jana.
Ajira ni swala wazi ama ni swala ambayo ni la hakika baada ya chuo kikuu? Je, ni kweli?
Fisadi umekita mizizi katika nchi yetu, ambapo lazima mtu yoyote anapotafuta ajira lazima aweze kumonga au kumtilia pondo mwajiri ili aweze kupata ajira.
Unaweza kuwa umekamilisha chuo kikuu na ikawa nadra kujiajiri mwenyewe.
Nomino zinazozingatia sauti guna.
Nomino ni pa.
Jangwa. Kanusha.
Sisi wanafunzi wewe.
Upande wa darasa.
Sisi ndisi wanafunzi.
Umenoa.
Mwezi huu wa Aprili, pwani inatua Nairobi. Jiandae kwa usiku wa kipekee Coast Night ikiandaliwa na Radio Taifa na Pwani FM. Ijumaa ya tarehe 18 mwezi Aprili, Imara Mall, ghorofa ya 3, Mombasa Road, Nairobi. Tukio linaanza saa 12 jioni. Furahia burudani kutoka kwa wakali kama Joseph Ngala na Bango Sound, Gwiji Freshly Mwamburi, Juma Tutu, Kwetu Brass Band na MC Mtano wa Mwaringa. Watangazaji unaowaenzi Mkanyika Jilo, DJ Tausi, Dima Kisasa, TK, Fundi Bengo, Dora Manya, mtoto wa Kiafrika na Mwana Juma Ali, Chozi la Mnyonge. Watafanikisha na kunogesha sherehe hiyo. Vyakula halisi vya pwani na vinywaji vitamu kutoka kwa mabingwa wa umazi jikoni. Watakaoingia mapema ni shilingi 2,000, mlangoni shilingi 2,500, VIP shilingi 5,000. Nunua yako sasa kwenye mook.com. Coast Night, utamaduni, ladha na burudani zisizo na kifani.
Good evening, welcome to Prime Edition. I am Cynthia Nyamai, and from me and the rest of the team, we wish you a happy Easter. Now, tonight, we continue to follow the story for you on organ trafficking, and the government has also upped its investigation as 2 of its senior officials have been suspended. We have the details of that story for you, and also President William Ruto has referred the conflict of interest bill back to Parliament. We have the details for you. And in business, I will be telling you a little bit about the opportunities in traditional food, and in sports, KPL fixtures and much more. But first, let's have the highlights.
All transplant services, and in particular kidney transplant services at Medihill Group of Hospitals, are hereby suspended.
Organ transplant services at Medihill Hospital suspended as government launches investigations into the conduct of 2 senior Ministry of Health officers.
Mimi nauliza nyinyi, kwani tunaweza kujenga barabara? Ndio huyo mimi najenga sijui hostels, tunajenga markets, tunajenga affordable housing, hata state house mimi najenga, alafu tukose kujenga kanisa.
And the third philanthropist, President Ruto vows to continue donating towards the building of churches across the country. Hitting the ground running, Public Service CS Godfrey Ruku in an impromptu inspection of the Central Police Station minutes after taking off of office. And the family of 23-year-old Benjamin Kyoko, who died in a building fire in the United Arab Emirates, seeks help to bring the body home. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Anne Wangeshi. Remember, we would love to hear from you. You can send us your comments on KBC Channel 1. That's on our Twitter, Facebook pages. And also you can send me a comment on my social media pages. That is Cynthia Nyamai. Now, 2 senior Ministry of Health officials have been suspended as the government steps up investigations into the alleged illegal organ transplant trade that has rocked the country over the last 1 week. Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale has further directed the suspension of all transplant services at the Medihill Group of Hospitals. Kenyans affected by the organ transplant saga have also been urged to record statements with police to aid the investigations of the matter. Said on Thursday that the decision is necessary to protect patients and uphold professional standards.
All transplant services, and in particular kidney transplant services at Medihill Group of Hospitals, are hereby suspended until further notice. I've also directed the immediate suspension of Dr. Morris Wakwabubi, the acting head of the Kenya Blood Transfusion and Transplant Services, and Dr. Evelyn Chege, the technical lead who chaired the ministry's multidisciplinary probe in December 2023.
We will be following up that story for you. President William Ruto has referred the conflict of bill interest 2023 back to Parliament for further review. Speaking during the swearing in of 2 cabinet secretaries and 14 principal secretaries at State House, Nairobi, the head of state expressed the need for collaboration by both houses to give the country a law that would effectively address and eliminate corruption. corruption. The bill seeks to, among other things, prevent public officials and using their position to influence decisions of other public officers to further their private interests, especially engaging in government business.
Experienced advocate of the High Court of Kenya and cooperative management professional.
Meet the latest entrance to the executive.
Geoffrey Kiringa Ruku is the immediate former member of parliament.
2 cabinet secretaries.
Anna Wendot Cheptumo,
been appointed a cabinet secretary of Kenya.
And 14 principal secretaries who are set to take charge of different state departments in the country. One after the other, they took their oath of office, pledging their allegiance to the millions of Kenyans they will serve. President William Ruto, who presided over the ceremony, revisited the pledge he made late last year that he will not sign the Conflict of Interest Bill if it does not meet a high standard of accountability and integrity.
I have just referred back to Parliament the Conflict of Interest Law or Bill, because in my opinion, it doesn't meet the threshold of the expectations of the people of Kenya.
The bill of 2023, which has delayed in Parliament, prohibits MPs, governors, cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries and parastatal heads from engaging in activities that conflict with public interests. It also imposes sanction on government officials found engaging in government business and creates penalties for violation.
We cannot afford to carry the baggage of self-interest into public service. And we must take accountability with the seriousness it deserves.
Members of Parliament will require at least 2/3 majority in order to overturn the President's veto on the draft legislation.
I expect both houses of Parliament to exercise leadership, that we get a piece of law that will help us manage and eliminate eventually matters corruption.
New cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries were urged to focus on service delivery to Kenyans.
We must stay focused. There are so many noises, but we must keep our eyes on the ball.
Ruto also drummed up support for the broad-based government.
It is the coming together of the willing, not to serve parochial, narrow, personal interests of leaders or individuals or parties. This broad-based government is the one that is going to deliver on universal health coverage. Every day, between 45 and 50,000 Kenyans register voluntarily.
He at the same time urged Kenyans to ignore his critics and allow his administration to deliver on their pledges.
They were in the social media saying, oh, you know, this thing will never happen. These people are useless. All they are telling us is lies. In fact, if a fox steps on this wall, it will collapse. The difficult decisions this nation has always wanted to make and have not been made because of political expediency, I will make those decisions and pay the price if there is any to be paid.
With the cabinet now complete, President William Ruto has tasked his cabinet to ensure that all promises they made during the campaigns are achieved. Abdiaziz Hashim from State House, Nairobi, Prime Edition.
The newly appointed Cabinet Secretary for Public Service and the Principal Secretary for the State Department of Medical Services, Dr. Omar Oluga, have hit the ground running, taking up assignments barely hours after being sworn into office. Ruku made an impromptu visit to Central Police Station in Nairobi to evaluate how residents are being served by government officers, as Oluga held a media briefing where he pledged to cure the challenges ailing the healthcare sector.
Hours after taking oath of office, the newly sworn-in Public Service Human Capital Development and Special Programs CS Geoffrey Ruku was on a tour of the Central Police Station in Nairobi.
Tutakuwa tunahakikisha all corners of the Republic, in all sub-counties in the Republic of Kenya, where there is a police station, mwananchi wa kawaida anaweza hudumiwa pale.
Here he expressed satisfaction with the current services but stressed the need for further improvements, particularly through the adoption of digital technology. Ruku pledging to digitize all government services across the country, including key services such as traffic offense management and the occurrence book reports, which are essential in police operations.
We have to ensure any service which the government of the Republic of Kenya is offering is efficient, is timely, and Kenyans feel that indeed they have a government which is taking care of their needs, taking care of their issues, and these are the instructions from His Excellency President.
And as Ruku was in Central Police Station, the newly sworn-in Principal Secretary for the State Department for Medical Services, Dr. Ouma Oluga, was at Afya House. Former Medical Services PS Harry Kimutai was redeployed to the State Department of Immigration, officially handed over Dr. Oluga. Oluga pledged reforms at Afya House. Michael Mondiga for Prime Edition.
President William Ruto says he will not be deterred from donating and building churches across the country. He was speaking during an event at the AIPCA in Meru County. The head of the state said building of churches is equally critical for him, just like any other development. Sentiments that were echoed by his deputy, Kithure Kindiki, and leaders who accompanied him.
Sasa mimi nauliza nyinyi, kwani tunaweza kujenga barabara? Ndio huyo mimi najenga sijui hostels, tunajenga markets, tunajenga affordable housing, hata state house mimi najenga, alafu tukose kujenga kanisa? Bana. Hatuwezi kusahau kujenga nyumba ya Mungu.
I will support you by implementing, following up, and making sure that all of us rally behind you as the father of the nation.
A family in Kitengela, Isinya sub-county, is mourning the loss of their son Benjamin Kyoko, a 23-year-old who died in United Arab Emirates, UAE, Sharjah tower fire that occurred last Sunday. The family is now seeking aid to bring the body of their son back home to accord their son a proper send-off. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 2 Kenyans are among 5 people who died in the Sunday fire.
Left in pain and agony, the family of Benjamin Kyoko is mourning the death of their loved one. According to the family, the 23-year-old and a firstborn son who grew up in Kitengela left the country in February 2024 for United Arab Emirates through an agent.
Benjamin alienda alikuwa amefanya course ya mechanical engineering, na kufika pale aliweza kufanya kazi kwa muda mchache tu, lakini kampuni ambao walikuwa ameenda kufanyia kazi through the agent waliambiwa kwamba hawezi wakamextendia ile visa yake.
They said their son encountered challenges with his travel visa in his first month after landing at UAE, forcing him out of work.
So akawa na wakati mgumu, na ndio hapo alianza akaniambia tumtafutie kitambulisho, the foreigners ID, na ndio tuliweza kufanya hivyo, na baada hiyo amekuwa akifanya kibarua.
The family learned about the demise of their son on Sunday through a friend and video clips that were circulating on social media.
Habari tulipata kupitia kwa simu ambayo tulipata kwa rafiki yuko hapa Kenya, ambaye alipigiwa simu kutoka UAE. Alafu baada ya kupata habari, tulijaribu kwa uwezo wetu kutafuta ukweli, confirmation kama ni kweli mtoto wetu yuko. Baadaye tukapata kweli alikuwa ameaga.
Kyoko's father says the family is in the dark as no official communication has been availed by the Kenyan government or the United Arab Emirates.
Mpaka wa leo hatuna serikali haijaweza kutufikisha, kutuweza kupata ujumbe kamili kutoka kwa serikali ya Kenya kuhusu kile kilifanyika mahali pale.
Alikuwa kijana mwenye bidii katika hii jamii yetu na jamii yote kwa jumla. Tumempoteza mtoto, tulikuwa na matumaini makubwa naye.
2 Kenyans had died on Sunday morning at a residential building at Sharjah, United Arab Emirates.
We really feel that the ops have been shattered by probably negligence from the UAE government for not according the requisite help in time.
It is indeed hurting that a young man who could not get opportunities in his own country goes further to seek for opportunities only for his life to be cut short.
The statement by Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Dr. Korir Sing'oei indicated that the 44th floor of the 52 floors high-rise building had caught fire without diverging more information or identities. At least 5 people had perished, including a Cameroonian, 2 Kenyans and 2 others who are yet to be identified. The Kenyan government has been urged to move with speed to ensure the welfare of Kenyans in foreign countries is taken care of. For Prime Edition, I am Teresa Mutai.
Our condolences. Now, the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation pensioners are pushing for the release of 3.27 billion shillings to their pension scheme. Subsequently, the pensioners have signed a petition seeking to compel their employer to remit the withheld amount to the pension scheme. Speaking during the workers' special general meeting held in the Broadcasting House in Nairobi, the pensioners, led by their chairperson Martin Kinasia, warned that they might recover the funds by taking hold of the prime parcel of land belonging to their employer if their demands are not met. The petition will be forwarded to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, that's the EACC, the Senate, the National Assembly, the Commission of Administrative Justice, as well as the Judicial Service Commission, seeking their intervention in the matter.
That we haven't paid zinakwenda mpaka 2005.
The Kenya Broadcasting Corporation pensioners held their special general meeting on Thursday. It is here that members revealed the unremitted funds were a source of suffering, deaths and psychological torture by the 170 pensioners and their family members.
Pay this money, usikae na pesa za wenyewe. Lakini sponsor amekuwa kichwa ngumu. Analipa kidogo, ana default. Analipa kidogo, ana default. So that's why it has grown to 3.25 billion, 27 billion mpaka leo, and that figure is calculated, si kwamba ndizo pesa ambazo wamekata na hawakupeleka. Hizi ni zile ambazo wamekata na hawakupeleka wakasahau kupeleka, is just about 1.6 billion.
This even as they call for the urgent release of 3.27 billion shillings withheld by their employer within 90 days.
Kama wangetupa hizo 1.6 billion na tuka-invest, according to the experts, financial experts, wanasema tungekuwa tumeinvest hizo pesa, leo hii mpaka 2027 zitakuwa zimetuzalia 3.27 billion.
Considering that ours is an aging scheme where more members are moving from inside to the outside, this meeting resolves for immediate creation of a 4th elective position by invoking a provision in our governance policies.
During the meeting, the members also raised fears of losing the colossal amount of money which is their savings to an individual in a suspicious manner, and mandated the trustees to immediately write to the executive, judiciary and the legislature explaining the 1.4 billion shilling that need to be urgently released.
So where we've reached right now, we've come on board where this matter has reached. We got instructions to advise on where we are. What is pending before the Honorable Court is that reference. The reference is like an appeal that was made by the other advocate who is asking for his fees.
KBC ikicheza piki peongi, baby come, baby go, wakasema wacha kukata wafanyikazi the 7%, lakini muendelee kurimit. They forgot to do it. Sisi hatupembelezani nao because we are elected, si ndio? Tunawaambia ukweli.
Timothy Kipnosu for Prime Edition.
The search for commissioners to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission enters its home stretch, with the panel expected to conclude the interviews next week, Thursday. And as the commission prepares to take a break for the Easter weekend, 5 candidates were interviewed on Thursday, with some pledging bold reforms if appointed, such as separating the election date of the presidential polls from all the other elective positions. Ben Chumba has more for you.
Day 18 since the start of interviews to select the next commissioners to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. With the country preparing for the Easter weekend, Ndungu, a criminologist with over a decade of experience at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Ndungu promised to bring his investigative expertise to the commission, skills in evidence analysis, preservation and truth-seeking.
If we can trust bank with our billions and millions of money, why don't we trust a software where maybe I can register myself at the convenience of my house, register as a voter, and then it will reflect to the IEBC. So that's the idea. If I am given an opportunity to join IEBC, I'll think of a software. I'll think of an app which will give all of us a convenience to register from our home.
Rodney Walter Okoth, a lawyer, governance expert and university lecturer, was next. Okoth will propose bold reforms if appointed, with included separating the presidential election from that of other elective posts to enhance accountability.
On the 9th of August, 2027, we'll be having a presidential election, and at the same time we'll be having a gubernatorial election, we'll be having senatorial elections, we'll be having parliamentary elections, and we'll also be having MCA elections. That puts a lot of pressure on the institution of the IEBC.
Educationist and Mombasa County Executive Dr. Roslyn Sidirandu brought her grassroots perspective, defending her leap into the stormy waters of electoral leadership despite the turbulent history of former commissioners.
Sometimes it's the pressure of the work and the political interference to some extent, not all the time. The citizens have very high expectations that this should be done at this particular time, and when it fails, that becomes a problem.
Do you still want to go on with this interview?
Yes, Chair, because this is a higher calling.
Dr. Rukia Tikia, director of the Kenya School of Government in Mombasa, shared her passion for inclusive voter registration while disclosing her spouse was also in the running for IEBC commissioner's role.
To a large extent, there is availability of radio and local vernacular radios. So through this, I think we can be able to reach and get them register. And then we have the issue of the voting space in terms of accessibility for the disabled groups. So we need to make sure that the voting places are friendly.
Ruth Songa Kalundu also faced the panel, concluding the day's interviews. The panel is expected to conclude the interview on the 24th of April and retreat to decide on those who will have made the cut to oversee the country's next poll in 2027. Ben Chumba, Prime Edition.
Well, if you're looking for a business idea or opportunity, I will be telling you more about traditional food. That and much more coming after the break.
Town Express! Twende, town! Okay, town, bado haijajaa dere, watu wengine 7.
Kwani wazako si ungekulia kwenu? Sasa umetoka wapi? Mimi sitaki mahindi leo.
Wewe unanchia mkate.
Siagushi mkate fubi.
Wewe ongea bora usikuze mkate yangu.
Usishike hivi. Unataka kulia huko mbali na mimi. Si mimi nakulamiwa ni wewe.
Donda, gari imejaa na bado unasema watu waingie. Tuambie ndare hapo apunguze wimbo. Niongee na timu hapa.
Hakuna volume inapunguzwa hapa. Kama unataka kuendesha gari yako, enda dial *570# option ya 3. Watu wanaendesha magari hapa nje na wewe bado unapiga nyenyenye kwa matatu.
Option 3,
unalipa ama unasuka?
Comfort yako iko kwa *570# option 3. Master Genio moja safi, reliable, modern safety and security features. Cheza mara kadhaa ujaze entry ticket zako kwenye draw ili uimarishe uwezo wa kushinda. Mshindi tunamtangaza 27th of April na gari tutakufikishia.
Omega unaenda hapa wewe? Mimi sindi na Madrid, nishainuka na *570#.
Inuka na Genio kwa *570# option 3.
Asante.
Father, you will conceive and give birth to a son, and you will call his name Jesus.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has chosen me to bring good news to the poor.
Not my will, however yours.
I understand that many have already hailed him as king.
Is it with a kiss that you betray the Son of Man?
Then take this cup from me. Not my will, however yours. Yours be done.
Are you the king of the Jews?
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has chosen me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind.
I can't see.
To set at liberty those who are oppressed, and announce that the time has come when the Lord will save his people. Is it with a kiss that you betray the Son of Man?
Are you the king of the Jews?
This man? A king?
I commit my spirit.
Welcome back. As the world marks World Hemophilia Day, the Kenya Hemophilia Association is advocating for a multi-pronged approach in tackling the rare disease. The association officials say despite the growing number of diagnosed cases, hemophilia is a genetic bleeding disorder, remains widely unprioritized with limited access to life-saving medication and specialized treatment centers. They are urging the government to increase the budgetary allocation towards hemophilia care, highlighting also that the high cost of clotting factor medication has made it inaccessible for most patients, particularly those from low-income families.
As the world marks World Hemophilia Day with the theme of this year being access for all, women and girls bleed too. People living with the disease in the country continue to face a silent crisis. The genetic bleeding disorder remains widely misunderstood and under-prioritized.
This condition has been associated with complications at childbirth. We hear about maternal death because of blood loss. This is one reason that contributes to blood loss. And we would wish that all of us, jointly together, started talking about this disorder and confront it as a nation.
With limited access to life-saving medication and specialized treatment centers, many patients are left to suffer in silence.
When my teeth were removed, because it is a culture that we remove our lower teeth as Maasais, I lost my blood to almost death.
Miguu sasa imekuwa challenging sana. Unapata bleeds kwa miguu. Na ina cause disability because as you can see nikiwalk, mimi siwezi tembea vile inavyofaa.
According to the Kenya Hemophilia Association, despite the improved treatment options, those with bleeding disorders in the country still lack adequate care.
We must allocate sustainable funding for consistent national supply of clotting factor. Clotting factor is the only medicine given to a person who has a bleeding hemophilia, bleeding disorder.
We are losing lives from a killer whom we know. A killer that the ordinary Kenyans cannot afford to prevent. It's only the government resources that can be able to save Kenyans. A dose costs 50,000 Kenya shillings. And for the minimum, you require 3 doses. That translates to 150,000 Kenya shillings.
The stakeholders have cited the exclusion of hemophilia from Social Health Insurance Fund and lack of funding, leaving patients and their families vulnerable to the high financial burden of treatment.
Hemophilia is not covered by the Social Health Insurance Fund. The government does not procure or fund treatment products. No clotting factor concentrates are registered with the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. Private hospitals lack stock due to high cost and low awareness.
As the number of preventable deaths grows, the Kenya Hemophilia Association is now sounding the alarm, calling on the government to take immediate and decisive action. Martini Maslin for Prime Edition.
Millions of Kenyans continue to grapple with the challenge of accessing clean and reliable water in the country. According to the Kenya Water Institute CEO, Leora Letongula, the situation continues to deepen in the arid and semi-arid regions and has been attributed to the growing infrastructure deficits and the adverse effects of climate change. Letongula spoke during the signing of a memorandum of understanding between KEWI and the Chinese government, which is set to boost the country's water harvesting infrastructure.
According to the National Water Harvesting and Storage Authority, Kenya collects less than 100 million cubic meters of rainwater out of the total rainfall potential estimated to be over 300 billion cubic meters.
I don't think we have done a lot when we say we have collected under 100 million meter cubed, yet our rainfall is around 354 billion cubic meters.
Millions of Kenyans struggle with access to safe, clean and reliable water for domestic consumption and farming.
We have perennial rivers crisscrossing the arid areas. So it's upon ourselves now to put on programs to ensure this water is not led to oceans or lakes.
To address the menace, the Kenya Water Institute and a delegation from the Chinese government have formally signed a partnership framework that will help in enhancing water harvesting technology and infrastructure in the country. Speaking during the inaugural meeting at the Kenya Water Institute in Nairobi, the institution's chairman, Patrick Mbangula, termed the collaboration as a crucial step towards cushioning Kenyans in the face of worsening droughts and reduced rainfall.
We are delighted to host the China government, represented by the Council Academy for Water Conservation, to deepen further and explore areas where we can work together in areas of irrigation and rainwater harvesting.
We are come here to partnership with Kenya Water Institutions, discussion how to share, discussion how to plan and actions in this field to respond to the water challenge problems.
The delegation has also acquired a 20-acre piece of land from the Machakos County government that will facilitate the construction of a modern training institute. The institution is set to equip technicians from Africa's arid and semi-arid regions with hands-on and up-to-date skills on water harvesting to address the water shortage menace.
The project that is coming up is about research and development. So the investment that is going to be here will help inform the decisions in our water sector.
John Kahiro for Prime Edition.
Welcome back. It's now time for business. In a move that is expected to bring much-needed relief to millions of electricity users, President William Ruto has signed into law the Excise Duty Amendment Bill 2025, which removes the 25% excise duty on imported fully assembled electric transformers and their parts. Wairi Monjenga reports on what this means for households and also businesses across the country.
Heavy electricity users pay connection fees of 15,000 shillings, especially for single-phase connections for households within 600 meters of a transformer. For those located farther from transformers, the fees increases depending on the distance. With the removal of the excise duty on electric transformers, the cost of connecting to the national electricity grid is expected to drop significantly. The Excise Duty Amendment Bill 2025, sponsored by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, that has been signed into law by President Ruto, marks a major step towards lowering electricity costs.
And this bill is very good because it makes the cost of transformers to the consumers and therefore the cost of power to the consumers cheaper. Brings the cost of our energy delivery lower.
Passed by the National Assembly on April 15th, the new law is expected to contribute to reduced electricity tariffs. Another impact is reducing the cost of transformers, as every connection relies on a transformer infrastructure.
You and I and team and the people in trade and industry must also work on the incentives for local manufacture of these transformers, encouraging the current assembly to go all the way to manufacture.
Lower transformer replacement costs translate to reduced operating expenses for Kenya Power, savings that could be passed down to consumers. Additionally, the new law is expected to ensure a steady supply of transformers, enabling Kenya Power to restock within its current budget and reduce the frequency of blackouts caused by stock shortage. The new law also corrects a tax classification for imported float glass to align with the East African Community Common External Tariff, ensuring clarity and consistency in taxation. Wairi Monjenga for Prime Edition.
Experts in the climate change space are calling for debt cancellation of unsustainable debts by multilateral institutions and development partners. Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance Executive Director Muthika Mwende says the existing terms of borrowing are unfavorable to developing countries like Kenya, creating barriers in mobilizing the finances needed for long-term investments in climate mitigation and adaptation.
A report by ActionAid reveals that rich nations owe African countries a significant climate debt, estimated at $36 trillion. This debt stems from the historic and ongoing disproportionate contributions of developed nations to greenhouse gas emissions, which have become a major concern for the global south. Resultantly, industry players say there is a need to restructure climate financing mechanisms for all global south countries to help free up resources for climate action and other national needs.
It is still the framework which is being applied in Africa. That is why it has failed. And so we need to promote a more democratic and representative structure of global economic governance, whether at World Bank and other institutions.
The Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance Executive Director, Dr. Mwenda Muthika, says financial institutions should provide grant-based, additional climate finance rather than loans to not add to the debt burden of climate-vulnerable countries.
We are fighting now for debt cancellation and transform the unjust international financial architecture. And we have the momentum. We want to work with climate movements, economic justice movements, tax justice movements, debt campaigns, the reality of aid, and those others.
PACJA is also urging governments to support the ongoing reforms of the global financial architecture that will address the need for a fair, transparent and multilateral framework for debt crisis resolution.
We expected 1.3 trillion as Africa, that was our minimum demand, but we were threatened, manipulated, we were carrot dangled, and eventually we settled on $300 billion a year, when trillions are clearly required to meet the scale of the climate emergency.
The remarks emerged during the unveiling of the Climate and Economic Justice campaign by the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance in partnership with Global Climate Action Partnership that seeks to unify voices on key themes including climate action, economic justice and social equity, all underpinned by a call for a just transition and global solidarity. Ndota Mokami for Prime Edition.
There is a need to enhance incorporation of traditional foods in the country's food system to boost food sovereignty. Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition marketing advisor Laura Wekesa says increased traditional food consumption could help reduce the food imports.
Kenya's food import bill is projected to have been at 266.4 billion shillings in 2024. From a high of 306 billion shillings the previous year. Players in the food value chain say the amount could drastically reduce if consumption of indigenous traditional crops increased.
Look for status, you want the best next thing as a Kenyan. So you want to eat, fast food because of convenience. You want to eat other things. So our culture is shifting.
Now we are talking about additives. We are having foods, but we have to add additives like adding vitamin A. But our traditional foods, we never needed to do that because they were already rich in all those nutrients.
Nutritionists say traditional foods adapt well to local weather conditions.
We didn't have to buy seed. We just needed to pick out the best from what we harvested, keep it, and we would use it as seed for the next crop. And the harvests would be quite okay.
Food plays a really integral role. We can't talk about environmental conservation without talking about, agriculture and the food systems and, the whole concept of food culture.
They call for enhanced training on production of traditional foods and value addition to increase consumption.
As we innovate in terms of bringing more nutritious foods, snacks, different value addition that could come up, it'll really benefit the small-scale farmers.
Once the demand goes up, it means the production will also increase and also the income for the small-scale farmers will increase.
Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kenya.
Wake up with Good Morning Kenya, the morning show that's got it all.
We dive deep into issues shaping our country.
Youth are a voice of a nation.
What is the next step for the young people?
Unpacking political landscape from Monday to Wednesday.
We discuss family matters.
It is very important to guard your relationship.
And for your health.
Someone doesn't wake up and they become an addict. It's in stages.
We've got you covered each and every Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Every Wednesday, it's all about The Viewpoint.
A day in politics is like 1,000 years.
Unpacking the biggest stories of the week, getting you insights and getting you ready for your day.
And the package is not yet done. I get to fix your Thursday with some entertainment. Entertainment Thursday, it is.
Good morning, Kenya.
We shape your day.
Good morning, Kenya. Every weekday morning on KBC Channel 1.
Mwezi huu wa Aprili, pwani inatua Nairobi. Jiandae kwa usiku wa kipekee Coast Night ikiandaliwa na Radio Taifa na Pwani FM. Ijumaa ya tarehe 18 mwezi Aprili, Imara Mall, ghorofa ya 3, Mombasa Road, Nairobi. Tukio linaanza saa 12 jioni. Furahia burudani kutoka kwa wakali kama Joseph Ngala na Bango Sound, Gwiji Freshly Mwamburi, Juma Tutu, Kwetu Brass Band na MC Mtano wa Mwaringa. Watangazaji unaowaenzi Mkanyika Jilo, DJ Tausi, Dima Kisasa, TK, Fundi Bengo, Dora Manya, Mtoto wa Kiafrika na Mwana Juma Ali, Chozi la Mnyonge. Watafanikisha na kunogesha sherehe hiyo. Vyakula halisi vya pwani na vinywaji vitamu kutoka kwa mabingwa wa umazi jikoni. Watakaoingia mapema ni shilingi 2,000, mlangoni shilingi 2,500, VIP shilingi 5,000. Nunua yako sasa kwenye mook.com. Coast Night, utamaduni, ladha na burudani zisizo na kifani.
Welcome back. Small and medium enterprises should tap digital trade to exploit opportunities offered by the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Senior trade specialists at the AFTA Secretariat talked more about what they say is the African Union has implemented various strategies to ease cross-border trade. Betty Kiptum has more from the ongoing tech exhibition, GTEX Africa, in Morocco.
Small and medium enterprises are the backbone of the African economy. But for these SMEs to trade across the African continent, the cost of cross-border payments remains prohibitive. Innovation and collaboration, as well as a relook at the tax and policy environment, have been said to be the answers to bringing down these costs and to increase cross-border trade. The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is set to increase intra-African trade from the current 18% to 35% by 2045. The AFCFTA Secretariat says digital trade is the key to enabling small businesses scale and tap the 1.4 billion people African market while maintaining low costs.
This legal framework seeks to do is to make sure that it enables seamless, inclusive and affordable cross-border digital payments, to make sure that there is interoperability between different digital payments and settlement systems that exist. There is interoperability between the regulatory frameworks that exist either at the national level, at the regional level, and at the continental level.
Dr. Chidede says that African countries ought to stop working in silos in infrastructure development and adopt more collaborative efforts in order to enable cross-border trade, especially to support MSMEs.
This is an opportunity for African governments to accelerate the implementation of the AFCFTA, because now they have to look at this market, this huge market that has been created within the AFCFTA, that our products that we are producing, we have comparative advantage over, they can actually be sent to other African countries. And for those products, we can also create value chains across the continent such that we trade among ourselves.
The AFCFTA has put in place the Digital Trade Protocol that provides guidelines to facilitate digital trade across the continent. The Secretariat assures that checks are in place to ensure that African businesses actually profit from the preferential treatment and not non-African companies.
What we have done from the digital trade perspective is to avoid free riding by big tech non-African companies or big non-African digital platforms, or even non-African digital products benefiting from the preferences that are being accorded by the Protocol on Digital Trade. We have also developed a first of its kind rules of origin regime, which defines what constitutes an intra-Africa digital platform, an African digital platform, which defines what is an African digital product, what is an African digital content, what is an African enterprise that is doing business or that is coming from the African continent.
Even as startups called on the government to relook the taxation policies and give startups some exemptions to enable them to fast get to profitability and to achieve scale.
If we could get like a leeway to run the business for like 3 years fast, understand the actual market, how it feels like, and then start paying taxes. That the idea of being charged taxes as soon as you start running, it's still oppressive on our end.
Reporting from Marrakesh in Morocco, my name is Betty Kiptum.
Thank you, Betty Kiptum, for that report. All micro, small and medium enterprises will require registration in efforts by the government to create a database for small businesses in the country. Micro, small and medium enterprises Principal Secretary Susan Mangeni says registration of the SMEs will also help with access to both local and international markets and capital funding.
The International Finance Corporation estimates micro, small and medium enterprises face a funding gap of 4 trillion shillings annually as small businesses grapple with limited working capital. According to the Central Bank of Kenya, there are 1.18 million active MSME bank loans accounts with a total value of 783.3 billion shillings, leaving out a significant portion that are serviced by non-bank and informal lenders. To ensure micro, small and medium enterprises access working capital, the government plans to establish a database for small businesses in the country through registration to formalize the sector. In a raft of proposals in the 2025 SME draft policy, a single window portal for licensing, approvals and registrations of SMEs will be established with a number of government agencies integrated into the portal. Speaking during a stakeholder sensitization forum for the SMEs draft policy in Nairobi, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Principal Secretary Susan Mangeni said the draft policy will, among other things, strengthen the institutional and regulation frameworks, streamline regulatory processes, and enhance access to finance, markets and technology. A credit guarantee scheme will be established for onward lending to SMEs and linking SMEs to financial institutions. The policy also seeks to promote innovation, build capacity and improve MSMEs' competitiveness to expand their access to domestic, regional and international markets. To enhance registration compliance, the government plans to harmonize all taxes and levies to ease the cost of doing business and support small businesses to secure relevant certification. Beson Rioba, reporting for Prime Edition.
Financial institutions should step up their sensitization on housing and expand access to affordable mortgage to drive more Kenyans to embrace ownership of decent housing. Speaking during the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the Cooperative Bank of Kenya, Finasco CEO John Mwaura said that the deal would support thousands of those in the low and middle income segments transitioning from the renting to also owning homes.
Our vision does not stop at our borders. This partnership also creates out to Kenyans in the diaspora, those who carry Kenya in their hearts, no matter where they live. Through tailored diaspora financing solutions, CoBank will enable our brothers and sisters abroad to invest confidently back home with trusted support, clear processes, and the assurance that their dreams of owning a piece of Kenya are not only valid, but viable.
MOU between Fiscal and Cooperative Bank, and our partnership is squarely to assist our clients in accessing affordable mortgages and also to help them also to get a long-term mortgage term. Because we've signed a situation whereby if someone comes to us and is employed, he can access a mortgage of up to 25 years. And for the one who are in business, they can get mortgage of up to 12 years.
The government is streamlining the direct settlement system to ensure that at least 80% of proceeds from coffee sales goes directly into farmers. Cooperative Development Cabinet Secretary Wycliffe Paranya says that the reforms are geared at enhancing transparency in the coffee value chain.
Speaking in Dumberi Stadium in Kiambu County during a coffee sensitization forum, the Cooperative Development Cabinet Secretary said the reforms being put in place will ensure farmers get more from the sale of their produce.
Wakulima wamepata cherry fund, wamepata zaidi ya shilingi bilioni 7.6. 7.6 billion imeenda kwa mambo ya cherry fund. Na hiyo pesa iko because these are revolving funds. Saa ile kahawa yako inafanya auction kule Nairobi, wanatoa hiyo kwanza na wewe unapata balance.
Oparanya says under the new reforms, value chain players seeking to deduct any amount from the 80% ring-fenced for farmers would need the approval of the ministry to do so.
The government of William Ruto is committed to making sure that coffee farmers maximize their returns.
He has tipped coffee cooperative societies to tap the Chinese market that has immense market potential.
Kupitia star 570 hash tunakupa nafasi ya kuchomoka na this beautiful Mazda Demio. Enjoy a beautiful clean semi-leather interior, low mileage, fuel-efficient 1300cc engine, great for personal use and business. Ukitaka kujishindia gari hii, kucheza ni rahisi sana. Chukua simu yako, bonyeza star 570 hash, chagua option 3. And for only 35 shillings, hii gari inaweza kuwa yako. Kumbuka kucheza mara kadhaa because the more you play, the higher chances of wewe kuwa mshindi.
Mungu ni mwema, asante Mungu. Ile nitakuwa naendesha hivi.
Dial star 570 hash and make this dream car yours.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Ombeni mutapewa. Naye my dear nimekupata. Hii ni yako.
At least you can afford to laugh.
Jane, what have you done?
Mnaleta vita mpaka kwa boma yangu.
Be careful what you wish for, Pete. Unaniambia nini, Alex?
Hata siamini, what's the end of a man that?
Listen, sio hivyo. Come on. Check it.
Mama Jabba, sasa uchukue maua.
You homemaker. Umeniita nani? Huko kuna tu drama. Simu ni filini basi. Nyinyi wawili sitaki mtu akuja kwa boma yangu kabla mtajua vile mtasuluhisha hii shida yenu.
Welcome back. The National Treasury should focus on broadening the tax base to boost collections to fund the next budget. Ernst & Young, Associate Partner for Tax, Robert Minor, projects that debt servicing as well as pension obligations are likely to increase in the 2025-2026 financial year as more civil servants and state officers attain retirement age. Our reporter Regina Manyara explored the likely areas of focus in this year's budget during an interview earlier with Minor. Take a look.
The proposed budget, 4.2 trillion shillings for the financial year 2025-2026. Is this attainable in the current economy we find ourselves in? Joining me, Regina Manyara, on KBC Channel 1 is none other than Director Tax at Ernst & Young, Robert Minor. Thank you very much for your time. So, is this attainable?
Well, thank you very much for that, Regina. I mean, it's certainly an ambitious budget, absolutely not. I mean, at 4.2 trillion, And we are seeing the current economic situation where we have, the general economic situation. We have a lot of complaints in terms of how the economy is performing, as to whether the results of the economy actually cascaded down to the general citizen. So with the current proposed budget, I think it's a bit ambitious, and the government will have to do a lot to be able to actually finance that budget. Because the first thing is, yes, you can come up with a very ambitious numbers, but the question is, how are you going to finance that budget in the first place?
What could have fueled this uptick or rather increase in budgetary or the proposed budget given 2024-2025, we had around 3.9 trillion shillings. Now we're looking at an increase to 4.2 trillion shillings. What could have influenced this?
Now, historically, what we have observed in this country, we have a trend where we have just on an annual basis, generally speaking, been increasing our budget without generally looking at whether the economy can actually support that. Because if you think about, let's say, 5 years ago, the budget has actually been increasing year in, year out. So, and we've had the National Treasury speaking about zero-based budgeting, where they would actually request every ministry, every department to make sure that they actually start building their budget from scratch to a point where we can actually justify every item that's going into that budget. Unfortunately, we haven't done that. We have been looking at a case where we're just growing and increasing our budget estimations every year without having proper basis that are supported in terms of the expenditure that is there.
What are likely to be the priority areas in 2025-2026 for government spending?
One, I do think that the government will definitely focus on better. I mean, they really want to focus on their bottom-up economic transformation agenda, because that's the manifesto that brought them into power. So if we are looking at issues to do with agricultural transformation, we would expect a substantial amount to go into that. But like we have seen in the budget policy statement, the allocation to the sector is still quite low at about 5%, which is still quite low compared to the Maputo Declaration, which requires that the country should allocate at least 10% of our GDP to agriculture. So that is one of the items, one of the areas we expect quite a bit of money to go into. Then healthcare is the other area. Now, on the issue of healthcare, I think there's a whole debate, because at the moment we have the increased payments now in terms of the social health insurance fund, where the population or the citizens are paid quite a lot into this kit. Now, the balance between allocation from the exchequer and what will be paid by the individual citizens from their contributions is where the government has to play very well, just to ensure that, for instance, we have seen what is happening in the US. Donations that were coming to the healthcare space are no longer coming.
We are around 27 billion that we will not have in this financial year.
Absolutely, yes. So balancing that just to ensure that we do not have a gap, because the kind of financing we are getting from the external players is not coming in, is an important element that the government has to ensure that they address. And we are hoping that they'll actually address that, because as we know, I mean, these things are happening on a continuous basis, and so we have to keep on realigning the budget. The other aspect that we would expect is obviously education. I know over the years that has been the biggest consumer of our taxes. We have the people moving into the senior secondary school.
And the crux of the matter, how do you think Treasury intends to finance this budget that you have termed as ambitious?
Well, now financing is the biggest headache for the National Treasury. And it is good that, one of the positives that I've seen is that it is good that we actually see people who are seated in the National Treasury, they actually appreciate that they're actually facing a huge challenge, because what we are doing now, again, we have had those annual increments in terms of how much do we expect to correct. Again, at times, I do believe they may not be informed by proper economic analysis, because you cannot have year in, year out very huge expectations in terms of revenue corrections. You do not meet them, and then in the subsequent year you have the same repetition in terms of having huge targets.
The taxman has been given a target of around 3 trillion shillings. Given the history that we've had, do you think that this is feasible?
These taxes, they come from the economy. And if the economy is not performing very well, or there is no trickle down of the economic benefits, because I think when this government came in, they talked of ensuring the hustler or the benefits of the economy are trickling down to the economy and every other person is enjoying that. But I think when you speak to people on the ground, the reality seems to be different. So who are these people who are going to pay these additional, almost an additional billion Kenya shillings, when the economy is not doing very well? I mean, the government is trying to reduce the cost of credit to spur the economy. But are we likely to get the benefits that fast within a year, that the economic benefits will be realized? It's highly unlikely to be done within a year. So it's a very ambitious target. And, you saw what happened in 2024. The government wanted to raise an additional 300 billion. Now, that led to the protests that we saw. But if you check the historical basis of the finance bills we've had, the average increments have been within 50 billion to 100 billion. If you come up with a finance bill where you want to raise an additional $500 billion, obviously that will not face it will face a lot of resistance.
We're coming from a situation where we saw, members of the public protest against the finance bill 2024-2025. In your opinion, as a tax expert, what should government not do this time around?
What the government might try to do this time around, instead of going for new taxes, they might want to review what are the benefits that people are enjoying. For instance, the exemptions. We have quite a bit of exemptions. And it's an easier route that may not attract a lot of attention from the general public. So if you look at the VAT exemptions we have, and that's what they've been doing, they repeal those exemptions. If you look at the income tax, we have quite a number of benefits that were being granted. What they do is that they take away the benefits. A few of them every other year. They don't attract a lot of attention, but they are able to raise a bit of additional revenue. So raising additional taxes from new taxes is a bit difficult. But what we have seen is that the issue of levies. For instance, we started with the issue of the levy that was introduced on certain, let's say, the clickers and all that. We've seen adjustment in terms of the rate of other levies. So it seems like the general direction is the government is also imposing levies. Again, levies, people may not be so familiar with levies, so they might want to play around with certain things that are not going to attract a lot of attention from the general public, just trying to balance that.
We have been seeing the regulator, that is the Central Bank of Kenya, move to ensure that the private sector gets access to credit by lowering its rates. But then, on ground, it indicates that the monies are not trickling down in terms of credit access to private sector. With the government intending to borrow at least over 600 billion shillings to plug the 831 billion shillings deficit, what impact will it have?
That's obviously a challenge that is actually affecting this country. And unfortunately, what we see is that banks are very quick to raise their lending rates anytime there's an adjustment. But anytime there's a reduction, they are very slow to adjust those rates. Now, the question is why? One banker might say it's because we are already holding deposits which are already expensive. So obviously banks lend from the money that you and me give them. So some of them might argue that is the reason why they are not able to adjust that fast. But I think what we are seeing is that the central bank is trying to apply other measures to encourage bankers, because the other thing is that we have seen the non-performing loans. They've been quite high. And obviously for bankers, it also doesn't work for them when they have very high non-performing loans. So we hope over time, the various measures that are being taken by the central bank will actually encourage our bankers to actually reduce the rate to a reasonable level.
Now, is the risk-based lending meeting its objective?
Absolutely, yes. And there's a whole debate as to whether that model works. Because, obviously what that model does is that if you are deemed to be a high-risk person, then your borrowing rate is also very high. So at times it negates the real purpose of that, because if I'm a high-risk person and you are lending me at 20%, 25%, then the risk of default is also very high, because the interest I'm paying is also on the higher side.
On debt, government intends to diversify its currency of debt, moving away from the dollar. What impact will this have?
Yes. So what we have been doing, and I think over the past few years, we've been focused on the Eurobonds. Eurobonds are generally issued in US dollars. Now, what that has done is that that has posed a risk in terms of if we have a major fluctuation in the dollar rate, then our debt levels is also affected. And the other thing is that we are focused on certain markets. Now, the government has appreciated that Kenya is also trading with other countries such as China, Japan, the UAE and all that. So the intention there is then to try and get money from other countries such as Japan. You get it in Japanese yen. You go to China, you get it in the yuan. What that does is that the currency you are given or the money you are given, you can actually use it to service Chinese debt in that currency. But the key thing here is, as you get this money in those other currencies, the government has also be keen and ensure that they negotiate with these other countries such that we can actually pay their loans in their own currency. Because I know there are situations where you can actually, you find some countries insisting they want to be paid in dollars, yet that's not their own currency. So the balance between ensuring that, yes, we go for these other boards, the PADA boards and all that, but we ensure that we also have contracts where we have negotiated payment in their own currencies to mitigate the foreign currency risk with that.
Austerity measures or fiscal consolidation is something that we have heard about, but then is it followed on ground?
I think that's where we have an area where we need to really check in terms of where the areas where we can optimize. But it is also good to appreciate that in any economy across the world, government is normally the biggest consumer. So if the nature of consumption or the services they are consuming are actually proper, for instance, if they are seeing accommodation facilities, training facilities, building of roads and all that, and they actually pay on time, because the key thing is the government is consuming a lot, but they're actually not paying. So the money that should actually be going to the economy, to actually spur the economy, is actually stuck at the National Treasury. And that's why the whole issue of the pending bills. And I think it's one of the issues that is actually affecting the economy, because the circulation of cash in the economy has really gone down, because you have actually provided a service or goods to the government, but there's no cash. So you have no money to pay your workers, you have no money to pay your suppliers. So the knock-on effect of the failure by the government to actually pay for their services on time is bigger than even the yield of them spending a lot. Because I think if they actually spend a lot and that money comes back to the economy and circulates, the economy will in a way actually grow, and there will be positive impact.
Can Kenya survive without debt?
I think I'm a bit, I would say it's a bit on the higher side, our debt appetite. But the problem starts from the fact that we are budgeting, our budget is extremely high. You can't, because you only the two main sources of financing is either debt or taxes. So if you budget, you set up a very high budget, and the taxes that you are able to collect, because you only have a very minimal way of adjusting taxes, then you'll end up getting more and more debt. So if we resolve the main issue of ensuring that our budgets, either we manage how much we are budgeting, or we get to the zero-based budgeting, where now we can support every budget item, so that we check whether we actually need all these items that we have in our budget, then that might indirectly resolve the issue of the need to borrow more.
If you're seated in the hot seat at Treasury, what areas would you prioritize?
Well, in terms of the amount, I may not have enough an amount of my mind, but I would say I would actually push the zero-based budgeting, because what that does is that if you come from a ministry and you tell me your budget this year is X amount, I would want to see exactly what are you doing, what you are doing trickling down into the economy. So for instance, if we are saying it's a Ministry of Agriculture, where is the money going? Is it going into conferences? Is it going into people just traveling overseas to do some case studies? Or is that money actually trickling down to the farmers, maybe through extension officers, supporting through giving them proper, maybe seeds and all that, fertilizers. So actually getting to understand whether the expenditure that is actually being booked is actually going into the right places, or that money is actually being, used in ways that are not productive to the economy. So it will be more of a thorough analysis, and I think it seems like there's a good intention to do that, but now we have not seen actually that being done. So we hopefully that is done.
Are we looking at more taxes with the Finance Bill 2025-2026?
What happened last year I mean, we saw taxes such as the motor vehicle tax. Even those in government had issues. They were not able to explain what they are, what was the intention. So just imposing taxes for the sake of, and unfortunately what was happening then, I remember even the members of the National Assembly were saying, if you tell us to do away with this tax, how are we going to raise this 57 billion planned out of this tax? So that kind of reasoning is actually what led us to where we were. So we need to think of, in a new tax, if we think of any new tax, it should be well thought out. What is the impact? What is the rationale? Are people being taxed maybe through other ways? Or is there a better way of achieving the outcome? So making sure that we don't impose taxes which are not well supported or well thought out. I think that's where we need to ensure we don't go.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking to none other than Robert Minor, who is the tax director at Ernst & Young. And what he says is that we need to apply prudence when it comes to matters finances, especially now that we're looking at the proposed budget 2025-2026. I'm Regina Manyara. You're watching KBC Channel 1.
Deputy Chief of Staff in charge of Performance and Delivery Management in the Office of the President, Eliud Owalo, says the government is prioritizing expansion of the Kisumu International Airport and extension of the standard gauge railway from Naivasha to Malaba to enhance income-generating opportunities in the Western Kenyan region. Owalo further says construction of the Koru-Soyon Dam is a solution to the perennial flooding in the region, as well as support irrigation to enhance food production.
When we talk of upgrading, we want that airport to carry our cargo, produce from the farm, and very directly to external markets. There's what we call the Lake Region Ring Road. This is a road which historically has been in plan, but it has never seen the light at the end of the day. Under this current government, we want the Lake Region Ring Road to be built. The World Bank is willing to give out money for this road, this project. The redesign of the road has been done based on feasibility studies, and now Treasury is pursuing funding from the World Bank. We want fish processing plants. Already the government is establishing what is called fish landing sites, where we have got refrigeration facilities so that when fish comes from the lake, they can be processed. And once they are processed, we want also to export fish direct from the Kisumu International Airport.
Dairy farmers are pulling together resources to enhance value addition of milk to make products on high demand, such as cheese and yogurt. Our reporter Alan Oko has the details of the strategies employed by the dairy farmers in Nandi County to earn more from their ventures.
Dairy farming in Kenya has in the past been highlighted by a glut during the rainy season. However, enhanced value addition in recent years has addressed this, with dairy farmers now making a number of products.
For us, we're looking at a much bigger market. We are looking at the East African market and even the Central market. Why? Is because we have identified a niche. Our milk has high butterfat content compared to other counties. It's because most of our farmers produce the milk through natural environment.
The increased value addition is as a result of training on producing a number of dairy products.
Because they were supplying their milk to different processors, they thought, why not adding value to this milk that we are producing? But then they needed to come together, and they registered a union.
We are keen to understand what the county integrated development plans speak to, and also where possible, we also get into the development of those plans so that we are well integrated into what the county is envisioning for the people.
But it is not all rosy. The dairy farmers say they face challenges such as costly animal feeds, expensive credit and access to cooling facilities.
The journey towards growth is not a one-off. It's a long journey. We are drawing a lot of lessons, especially in terms of building stronger farmer institutions.
We are not working in isolation. We work with a pool of other partners even the farmers are not at zero. The farmers have something that they can bring into their own development.
Online retail firms Shein and Temu are warning U.S. customers of price hikes starting next week due to increased operating expenses occasioned by the recent changes in global trade rules and tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump on Chinese goods. Here are the details of this and other stories making headlines around the world.
The announcement by Shein and Temu could end the era of ultra-low prices that has attracted millions of U.S. shoppers. The end of the duty-free threshold for packages under $800 is also impacting the retailers who previously saw rapid U.S. growth. Consequently, both companies are experiencing a drop in app downloads and have significantly reduced their advertising spending in the U.S. While some other Chinese retail apps remain popular, Shein and Temu are encouraging customers to purchase now before the price increases take effect. Meanwhile, the European Central Bank is widely anticipated to cut interest rates for the third time this year. Markets heavily favor a quarter-point reduction, which could bring the key deposit facility rate down to 2.25%. This move could come amid concerns over global tariffs, tensions and economic uncertainty in the Eurozone. Despite easing inflation that is nearing the European Central Bank's 2% target and previously signaled caution from the bank regarding further rate cuts. Finally, United Airlines is maintaining its full-year profit forecast but has issued a second, lower outlook in case of U.S. recession, citing economic unpredictability. While overall booking trends are stable and the airline plans to cut domestic flights by about 4% this summer due to weaker demand in that sector. However, international and premium cabin bookings remain strong. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby says domestic and Canadian travel are currently the weakest region for the airline. Sylvia Gatti, KBC Channel 1.
Jet A1, cheza avieta bila data bila credo. Dial *892# for instant takeoff. Pepea bila pressure kucrash au kucash out. Avieta bila data, avieta bila credo. Uko na kabambe, wewe pia ni rubani mnoma. Dial *892#. Jet A1, michezobet.com. Cheza kwa kuwajibika. Kushiriki ni miaka 18 au zaidi. BCLB license number 0000664.
A very good evening to you. Welcome back. Let's now take a look at what's making headlines in the world of sports. My name is Karen Kibet. Now, the sports CS Salim Mvurya on Wednesday broke ground for the first modern sports academy in Kenya, which will be at Taru Secondary School in Makinon Ward, Kwale County. Speaking during the event, Mvurya noted that the academy will include modern changing rooms for both boys and girls in all disciplines. He said the academy has been scheduled to take 5 months. Because of unforeseen circumstances, the academy is among the 37 sports academies that are in the pipeline to be constructed across the country at a cost of 1.7 billion. The objective of the academies is to identify and nurture talents from the grassroots and ensure they are exposed to the whole world. The Taru Sports Academy will have different disciplines, including athletics, football, basketball, volleyball, and netball.
Huu mradi ni mradi wa mseto, uko na mambo mengi zaidi, na utagharimu serikali shilingi milioni 55 kwa muda mfupi wa miezi 4-5 tuweze kurudi hapa ili tuweze kufungua huu mradi wenu.
Rockstar FC, the proud beneficiaries of the Tujiamini Cheza Dimba initiative, shared their inspiring growth story at Kamukuya grounds, describing their rise in football as a sweet journey. The team, under the Tujiamini sponsorship, since has steadily climbed from grassroots football to earning a spot in Division 2. Speaking on behalf of the team, manager Ronald Mugeira expressed gratitude for the 250,000 Kenya shilling sponsorship that has transformed the team's operations. Tujiamini 2025, powered by SportPesa, continues to make a lasting impact across Kenya. This year, the initiative is prioritizing supporting women football by awarding 50,000 Kenya shillings, one-off prize and full kits to winning ladies grassroots teams, reinforcing its commitment to gender equality and fair play in sports. Speaking on behalf of SportPesa, Deborah Maina, PR and advertising executive, emphasized the program's long-term vision. Meanwhile, 32-year-old Zablon Katana Kahindi, popularly known as Benja, is the newest millionaire in town after landing a staggering 15 million windfall after staking just 15 shillings in the Betika midweek jackpot. Benja irons garments at a local apparel factory in Mombasa, hails from Ganze village in Kilifi County. The soft-spoken winner couldn't hide his disbelief and joy as he recounted how his life took a dramatic turn on the evening of February 11th, April, when he placed his winning bet after a long day at work, alone and hopeful.
This year, tuko excited kurudisha Tujiamini 2.0 ambao categories bado ni zile but pesa imeongezwa ipande hii, na ya muhimu zaidi ni the impact that we want to create. Right now we have the Gold Community Award ambao tunapea 1 million to miradi za mtaa. Ukiwa na project pale unahitaji kusaidiwa, take this opportunity, we have 1 million for you.
Mimi nashukuru SportPesa kwa kuchipini kuja kutusaidia. Actually hapo nyuma tulikuwa tuna struggle kwenda game, kulipa referee, kutravel, ilikuwa ngumu. Lakini the moment SportPesa waliingia ndani kutusupport, imekuwa rahisi.
And that's it for today's sports. I'll see you tomorrow on Easy Friday. My name is Karen Kibet. Have a peaceful night. I hand you back to my colleague Cynthia Nyamai for more. Good night.
Thank you, Karen Kibet. And from me and the rest of the team, we do want to wish you a wonderful weekend and happy Easter. Have a good night.
Inuka na Loto Moto sasa kwa star 570 hash option ya 4 kuna kashamba juja na nika 50 by 100 worth 1.7 million Kenyan shillings. Na hii si shamba tu, iko kwa prime location few minutes from Juja Town. Stima yako iko ndani, na kama ni development rapid and so promising. Na mambo ya landlord, mwisho wa mwanzo ni hapa. Ukishinda hili shamba tunakuongeza 1 million Kenyan shillings ujijengee nyumba yako kwa shamba yako. Kuinuka na Loto Moto ni kucheza sasa hivi kupitia *570# option ya 4 au register deposit na ucheze sasa hivi kwa www.tushinde.com na ujishindie shamba hili na addition of 1 million Kenyan shillings. Inuka na Lotomoto!
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has chosen me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind. I can't see. To set at liberty those who are oppressed, and announce that the time has come when the Lord